Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to do a predictions video, this time for the upcoming PLE, which is Crown Jewel, set to take place on Saturday, October 11th in Perth, Australia. KP, you get to watch a PLE at a decent time. Over here in the States for us, it's, I believe, 7 o'clock on the East Coast side and 5 a.m. Something of that sort. So very early. We have it with some breakfast over here. But yeah, we're gonna get into each match like we always do. Align them in a sort of order that maybe makes sense, but in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter much. We'll hit every match and let you know what we think could happen. Let's go ahead and get into the first match of the night, which is AJ Styles going up against John Cena. As Styles said, they're going to leave it all in the ring, and this match is going to kick ass. That's about all this build has, and honestly, still for me, one of the matches I'm looking forward to most. KP, who you got coming out of this one?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's going to be interesting watching a PLE, at a decent time for myself. Not one that's going to be on like really crazy early in the morning, whatever, like late at night type thing. So yeah, definitely keen to get up, start my day, and just watch this with lunch. So that'll be quite nice. Going into this first matchup here that we'll be discussing, Styles and Cena. Yeah, this is an interesting one because, like you said, no real build going into it. Just basically the fact that they've had a lot of history between the two of them, and we want some good matches in the last little stretch of this farewell tour for John Cena. And this is a good one to to have towards the very ending. As far as who I think is going to come out on top here in this one, I think you can make a pretty compelling case for either here, considering there's been nothing to go by up until this point. So maybe a little bit of guesswork. Cena's still looking for his 100th PLE win, so he's on 99 at the moment. I feel like they're going to give it to him. They've only got 2 attempts left by the looks of the dates. You got this one, and you got Survivor Series. You could argue that his last big PLE will be his 100th win, so you could maybe make a case for Styles winning this one in that sort of situation. But I don't know. I just feel like John Cena and AJ Styles. Yeah, I guess my gut feeling is to go with John Cena, but you could make a really compelling argument for Styles in this one. But just purely for the gut, I'm gonna go with Cena. I wish I had more, but there's just nothing to go with here. It's very much guesswork in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Cena just as I think it's gonna happen type situation. What about you, Nick? You got anything more concrete, or is this basically just it really is a 50-50 guessing game?
A guessing game for sure. Just depends on, when you ask me what my how I'm feeling that day. But yeah, Cena just lost in very convincing fashion at the last PLE. You make a good point. The 100th PLE win, you would be kind of shocked if he didn't get it right. But why did he lose his last match? That opponent hasn't been seen since. So where is he? No one knows. Why did he lose? No one knows. If his logic is the man who gave everything to the business is continuing to do so and is going to continue to put people over, AJ is also close to his retirement, or at least that's what he's telling us. So not as close, I don't think. I don't, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think a loss hurts either guy here, but obviously the microscope is more so on Cena because his days very much are numbered. Um, so yeah, you could definitely make the case for either. I'm going to say if Cena let the last guy get over on him, I think if anyone deserves a win over him in this case, you could argue that they're demeaning if he will, ends up losing this match as well, and then maybe one of the last two, essentially, if he's going to lose out. Can't imagine him doing that either, but at this point, it doesn't seem impossible. So, with that, I think AJ is going to be around and a lot more than the last opponent has been. So, I feel like AJ is more deserving, and Cena's going to put him over as well. So, that's my opinion here. AJ Styles, but this is definitely one of the matches I'm looking forward to most. This should be an absolute banger. Going ahead and getting into the next match, We have a tag team match is arguably one of the best builds, so coming off one of the worst to the best. Io Sky and Rhea Ripley going up against the Kabuki Warriors and Asuka and Kairi Sane. Um, We've seen Asuka and Kairi stand tall pretty much every single week since we started this whole story with this Asuka character really kicking it into high gear. One thing to note, and we'll get into that later, Bronson Reed being another kind of local talent here. Do both of the local favorites win? I think that could very much play a part to whichever match comes first. I have a hard time believing that they're going to have both local talents win. But if you put the two, Bronson and Rhea, together, I think I think 99% of the world will tell you Rhea is much more important in the grand scheme of things than Bronson. Not to say Bronson's not important, but you hear the crowd reactions to both talents, and you know which one. And if you watch the Netflix special, you know which one is more important to WWE right now. So, uh, with that, KP, you got a clear cut winner here.
Yeah, I do. I think that this one's pretty straightforward. Probably one of the most easy matches to call, I think, on the card. For me, it's got to be Io Sky and Rhea Ripley winning this one. I think just based on, like you said, you touched over it, how pretty dominant Kairi and especially Asuka have been in the build up to this contest. It's been it's been night and day really here between the two duos. So yeah, you got the absolute star power of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. You put them together, surely that's an unbeatable force, right? But yeah, just purely for the fact that Asuka and Kairi have been so dominant up until this point. I mean, them getting the win here as well would be awesome for both women. You know, it could keep on, raising their stock, and it would be great. But I can't see that happening purely for the fact that you know you got Io and Rhea, and like you said, with the Australian native being Rhea Ripley in this matchup, I think that they will probably get at least one victory from an Aussie on the night, or on the day, I guess you could say. So I'm going to go with Io and Rhea. I think it is a pretty nailed on thing for me personally. I got no real doubts about it, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this build to this matchup, and I hope we're not really too done with this afterwards. I hope something sort of like materializes afterwards, but I just think everyone's done a great job of building this up to what it is. So keen for the match to take place, and I'm going to go with Rhea and Io.
A great build, I would agree. And I would be shocked if we are done with this. I surely hope we are not. But I'm gonna pose a question for you. If Io and Rhea end up losing, does it matter? Does it hurt their credibility? I would say, very firmly, no, it doesn't. And further to that, what if Kairi joins the kind of I get loony, crazy, whatever you want to say, character that Asuka's been showing off. All of a sudden, Kairi and Asuka, as the Kabuki Warriors, getting a win over two of the most dominant women in the division. They get a win here. We all of a sudden have a very important and dangerous tag team. And yes, just a reminder, WWE does have a women's tag division. Sometimes we forget that because it gets put on the back shelf a lot. But all of a sudden, you have a very credible tag team. So wishful thinking, maybe. But the Kabuki Warriors winning here does, leagues for them in that division. And, like we said, are both Australian talents going to win? I don't think they're going to. I think it seems too obvious. Um, so I actually I'm gonna go with the Kabuki Warriors. I think them getting a win here and Asuka just going, just absolutely crazy and taking Kyrie with her, getting the pen over. Imagine even getting that over Rhea. Io conflicted still, I think a bit, and so is Kyrie. But if Kyrie just goes off the deep end, um, I think it could do wonders for them. And like I said, I don't think it hurts Rhea and Io at all. So I'm gonna go with Kabuki Warriors. I'm gonna say they're gonna win here. And the heel, like just imagine the heel reactions from them if they were to pin either Io, but especially Rhea in Australia. I don't know. I think that's an opportunity that could be made into a huge moment. And lately, WWE has all been all about those. So making a big moment, that would certainly be one. Getting into the next match, we have the other Australian talent and the OTC Roman Reigns going up against Bronson Reed in a match. Bronson Reed made famous, according to Paul Heyman. Uh, what do you think of this one, KP? I'd like to hit it both ways. If Rhea does end up winning here, and if Rhea does end up losing, does that kind of change your outcome here?
Um, well, I guess you do make a really good point about questioning, the Australian win record here. I guess you could say. I don't know if so much this really depends on Rhea winning or not, but I do have a feeling that Rhea will win. Like I'm still pretty confident about that. You made a very compelling case with your counterpoint a moment ago, but yeah, I just feel like they've done such a good job of building Bronson Reed up, in the past number of months. And I feel like, he did lose that match to Roman Reigns at Clash in Paris and then completely and utterly destroyed him afterwards. So, in that sense, he continued to look strong during that. And, he didn't really slow down from there on. The build has been, sort of almost not forgotten about, but like just sort of put to the side whilst Roman's been away. And we only really had him back 2 appearances in that meantime. That was last week and this week. So yeah, just really to set up this match very quickly and just to put it forward. I think you can make a strong argument here for both men winning. I think you could argue that Bronson Reed needs the win more than Roman Reigns does because of the fact that the stock they've put into Bronson so far and recently being so. I think just having him win here against Roman Reigns would be just unbelievable for him in his career. It would shoot him up a lot higher on that ladder of what people might expect from him, what people see him as, and just generally just sort of like people's opinions on Bronson Reed will just completely skyrocket. I think if he gets a 1-on-1 win over Roman Reigns, and obviously you've got the Vision, you got Paul Heyman, you got Bron Breakker, so they could effectively be involved in this and they could help out Bronson Reed. It's an Australian street fight after all, so there's no disqualifications. But yeah, there are definite ways I can see Bronson Reed winning, but I can't not pick Roman Reigns. I just think Roman's going to get the victory here. Like, just he's the kind of guy that he comes back, he wins a big contest, and yeah, he. I don't know. I can't see it. I want to see it. Don't get me wrong. I think Bronson winning is the better option, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's basically a head against heart thing here, and like I just feel that Roman's gonna win. Like I can't not imagine it in my head. I can't not picture it. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Roman just purely for the fact that of that reason that I just laid out. Then, just the name, the prestige of him. I think it should be Bronson, but I can't see it happening. What about you, Nick? You mentioned the Rhea Ripley side of things as well. How pivotal is that matchup? In the swing of this result.
Well, you know how I like to book the other side of it because, like just to giving an example, the Jey Uso Gunther match at WrestleMania, imagining the heat that would get, built had Gunther just destroyed Jey in that moment. This is similar, and this is the same tune we were singing at Clash in Paris. Bronson Reed getting a win over the OTC would be huge, but he didn't get that win. So does he get that win here? And so I think, just hypothetically speaking, I think it's the obvious answer is everyone thinks Rhea Io win, therefore probably won't have two Australian talents win. But I want to flip that again because I think if you have Rhea lose and then you have Bronson Reed win, all of a sudden you have two matches that are moments and building legitimate threats. So yeah, you make a good point with Roman. It's never a good idea to go against Roman, just like it was never a good idea to go against the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Um, but I think if and another point here is Seth. Seth being part of the Vision. If he wins or loses his match, do we have two members of the Vision lose on the same night, or do we have two members of the Vision win? Further, escalating them. Clearly, WWE is high on them. They're part of every main event that we ever see these days. So that's another point to be had as well. So with all that. I do think Bronson has to get the win here, but obviously Roman just came back. So does the OTC, who they clearly have big plans for him. It's obviously the OTC. And you know, if you believe in all the rumor stuff, it's circulating to have a huge push as well. But I think you have a star if you have Bronson Reed win here. And so I think I am going to go Bronson Reed. Obviously, it is a match that he made famous, and you have the other members of the division. Even if Seth is busy later, I think they'll come into play, and I think obviously Jay and Jimmy could possibly come into play too. Even though he said that he didn't want them there, if you know, I think all of those could play a factor, but in the end, I think it is Bronson Reed that's going to get the win and absolutely help skyrocket him in a win over the OTC. And similar to a few other people we've mentioned tonight, a loss does not hurt Roman Reigns here. So I think that's the most important part here. So maybe it's wishful thinking, but I do think Bronson Reed is going to be the Australian that gets the win here tonight. Getting into the next match, we have another one that seems like it should be straightforward, at least in my eyes, and perhaps the politest build in WWE history for that Crown Jewel Championship. We have Stephanie Vaquer going up against Tiffany Stratton. KP, this one clear cut as it seems.
I don't know where you're getting the clear cut from. I really do not. I have no idea. I have absolutely no clue who's going to win this contest. You could argue that, you know, both women are, you know, set up to win this one. Tiffany's had an unbelievable year in terms of results, you know, just defense after defense after defense. Yeah, you could argue she hasn't had the most, you know, varied opponents during that time. But in terms of her reign, you know, she's the longest reigning champion in WWE current modern day. So, yeah, you know, there aren't many people that are on better form than her. On the flip side, you got somebody like Stephanie Vaquer, who is also in tremendous form, and you know, ever since you know, debuting in WWE back in NXT last year, and just working herself up that roster so fast and so quickly, getting up to the main roster, and already with a title over her shoulder. Yeah, I think just generally speaking, this one is just two women just performing very, very well and just getting lots and lots of wins. So do I know who's going to win? No, not at all. I think this is very much a question mark, and like you said, this has been one of the most politest builds in history, and we literally just had the contract signing, right? So that was basically all this build really was. It's been both women just saying they're going to win, but they show respect to each other. So there's no real edge to it in terms of, you know, who I think has like the advantage. I think in a sense of who I think should win, I think it should be Stephanie Vaquer, purely for the fact that you building her up to this point where she's beaten Io Sky, she's the world champion, and she's had an absolute rocket, you know, attached to her, you know, to begin her main roster career. You know, why slow that down? Keep her going, keep you know, firing up in that rocket, and have her win this one against Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany hasn't been pinned or submitted in 2025. So I mean, we're talking like what, we're in October now. So like over 10 months it's been since that point. So I think there would be no shame in taking one here to Stephanie Vaquer. It doesn't hurt a title reign at all. You know, she's been very, very consistent. So, you know, one loss in this one doesn't really mean too much. So yeah, I mean, I think Stephanie makes more sense, but in terms of who I think's going to win, I don't know. It doesn't seem clear cut to me. I can see Tiff winning as well on the flip side of that. So yeah, I just don't want the momentum of Stephanie Vaquer to be sort of like halted at the moment. So I think her winning does make the most sense. But yeah, I guess that's where my head's at. But you sound pretty clear cut with what you were saying. So who do you think's going to win?
So one of your last points there is what I'm going to hammer home here, and that is Stephanie Vaquer building up this character on the main roster. She's beaten Io Sky, and now to have her beat Tiffany Stratton, I think, you know, would do worlds for her character. And all of a sudden, you have another star. They've been hitting on that undefeated streak for Tiffany Stratton, having not been beaten in 2025. How many times do we see them mention a streak like that and then immediately make reason for it? Because they hadn't really mentioned it outside of the last few weeks. At least I don't recall them doing so. So I feel like with that, the writing is on the wall here. They bring up that streak for Stephanie to break it, and bam! All of a sudden, just like that, you have another premier talent who started off by beating Io and now Tiffany. The other side of that coin, what happens for Tiffany if she wins? Honestly, you could say pretty much nothing. Not only does that really not help elevate her because Vaquer is still a very new talent who doesn't have a ton of wins under her belt. Beating her doesn't really mean much for her character. Um, and so, with that, you could say, really not much. The only thing she really loses out on is that streak being built if she loses. So a blemish in Stratton's record, maybe that's the reality check that she needs. Because outside of her saying Tiffy time, she really has been nulled quite a bit from what her character used to be. So I think for me, it is clear cut. And I think every single direction points to Stephanie Vaquer getting the win here. She needs it. Tiffany doesn't. You build Stratton, or excuse me, you build Vaquer as a star by getting her to beat Tiffany Stratton, and so I just can't make a case for Tiffany to win. Her streak, and this is the match she can lose, and absolutely nothing else happens except for she doesn't get that nice little ring or the Crown Jewel Championship. So with all that, I am going to go with Vaquer. This is probably the most confident pick I have of the night. Getting into the next match and what all likelihood will be that main event. It is Cody Rhodes going up against Seth Rollins for that nice little ring and green title. Seth seems to have everything to lose based on this last episode of Raw. Those things said by Paul Heyman were, to me, they hit really hard. So if he does lose, all of a sudden you have a very interesting storyline with Division. Cody, on the other hand, seems to have absolutely nothing to lose except that second green ring. KP, what do you make of this one? Who's coming out on top? Obviously, Cody Rhodes having the perfect record against Seth Rollins. Does that come into play here? Do we see an ending to another streak if the last match comes to fruition, as I predicted?
Firstly, before I hammer home on my thoughts and stuff here, no way Cody has the more boring persona going into this matchup. Go figure. Anyway, moving on from that, I just had to quickly say that at the start. Seth Rollins, I mean, it's all about him, right? In terms of the build, there is so much on the line for what he has to do here at Crown Jewel. It's been highlighted for the last couple of weeks, the importance of him winning against Cody Rhodes. You can see how it's affecting him mentally. He's literally just almost like talking to himself all the time, basically saying, I have to win, I have to win, I have to win. It's been sort of like, really drilled in there to the point where he can't really sort of look at anything else. He can't think about anything else at the moment. So, with Paul Heyman, like you just mentioned quickly then, the comments that he made towards Seth this past Monday, I mean, it's really signifying the importance of a win here, right? So not only will Seth question everything, but Paul Heyman will question everything, and will things crumble with the Vision and things like that. So, Seth has absolutely everything to lose here, everything on the line. It's far more important for him to win because of what's been going on. You could argue that a Cody win, we get to see that spiral, and we get to see what goes on, and how things sort of materialize from there on. Is that a good thing? I personally, well, if it goes how Heyman and Seth have been feeling about it, then no, I don't think it is a good thing. I don't think we need to see that with the Vision. I think they need to, if anything, get stronger and build themselves up more. And they don't want to be crumbling just yet. We're only a few months in. Unless it's really going that badly for them, they're not trusting this anymore, and they want to break things up. I think that'll be a wasted opportunity. I think there's still perfect time to to get this right. So if that really is the direction they'll go with, if Cody wins, then I do not want that to happen. I feel like they need to keep investing in it, and they need to keep building them up, because they've got a really good group here that, just with a bit better direction, can really be something special. So I'm hoping and wishing and wanting Seth Rollins to win this match, because it just makes more sense, and there's just a lot more on the line if he does win. So, Cody doesn't lose anything except for a match, and I know he doesn't lose them very often. He's got an extremely good record, and obviously, like you said, 3-0 against Seth Rollins. This could be 4-0 for him, but I hope it's 3-1. I hope it is that when it gets to that point. But yeah, I got to go with Seth. I just feel like it has to be like What good does a Cody Rhodes win do here? Like, it doesn't do anyone any favors, in my opinion. So yeah, it has to be Seth. Nick, how important is this? Do you really think the division will crumble if in the way they're sort of making it sound like they will if Seth does lose? Or do you think, they're doing this deliberately to try and swerve us and we're going to have a Cody win and everything's going to be not as bad as we think afterwards?
So, just in case you don't listen to the push very often, and KP isn't as, uh, well, how do I want to say this? KP isn't as forward as he is off air, but KP does not like Cody Rhodes. So, if you notice that little jab there on Cody, um, if you talk to KP off air, KP is not a fan of Cody Rhodes. So he had to get that jab in there, and it got a good laugh out of me. So yeah, with this match, there's a lot to talk about. Especially, I think if you take out that Raw segment last week with Paul Heyman, this match is there isn't much to talk about other than the streak, the 3-0 record. I guess the streak is a three-match win streak, an actual streak. Anyways, regardless, um, yeah, you see lots of reports online saying that maybe the Vision isn't going to be this huge dominant faction that we thought it was. I think a lot of us saw that and we're like, oh boy, this is gonna be a dominant faction for, God, maybe years. But all of a sudden you see these reports and you see that potential crack or blemish in the Vision already, and we're, 6 months not even removed from WrestleMania, when we see that faction kind of get started. So that would be really shocking to me if we are going down that route. You could obviously make a case that Seth losing here does make for the better storyline because then we get that potential stuff. But you think back to the Bloodline too. We saw those cracks and blemishes for eons. It felt like it wasn't much time before we started seeing cracks in the bloodline. And so I think even if Seth were to lose here and they were to continue to go down those stories, kind of like you said, at least I am hopeful that we're not starting the breakup of them. um, you could argue that all three members need to break free from that faction, but I don't feel like they would have gone down this kind of hole if we were going to start separating it, not even 6 months later. Feels like the group should be a bit bigger than that. So, maybe to the wishful thinking of the rest of the roster, because getting them separated certainly opens up some opportunities and some doors for other talents. But yeah, Cody doesn't lose a lot, and as you mentioned, doesn't really matter much if he does win or lose here, other than getting that second green ring, which does look good on our undisputed champion. Another factor that I'm seeing flying around everywhere is Randy Orton. Does he come into play here? Obviously, you have the other Vision members who we discussed earlier in the night. They could come into play. Also, so could Randy. But a lot of people calling for that Randy heel turn in the Randy Cody feud that everyone's been clamoring for feels like years, ever since Cody came back, essentially. So I think those are some factors that could come into play as well. But for me, this one's probably the toughest one of the night, I think, because Seth losing here creates lots of drama, and WWE loves drama. Cody winning or Cody losing doesn't really do much, you know? And so if Randy does come into play and cost Cody, obviously that helps Cody go into a storyline, and then maybe it at least pushes off these potential cracks in the vision. So with that, and I love both Cody and Seth, but Seth doesn't deserve an 0-3 record against anyone, so I think Seth does deserve a win here. Cody could need a loss here. Not much happening, argue anything. So I think Seth does deserve the win here. I mean, I am going to go with him to get his nice little green ring as well. So with that, KP, this is a very interesting PLE. Lots of and kind of I think people either love or hate this. In the grand scheme of things, I think for the most part, people call Crown Jewel a B-level PLE. But with the champion versus champion side, there's lots of stuff that can happen here. Lots of matches here that are very intriguing in terms of what it could do for storylines down the road. Let us know how much you're looking forward to Crown Jewel, how you're feeling for it. Give us a little temperature check, and what matches or match are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, this it's been very sort of opinionated with the crown jewel PLE and what is formerly something that happened over in Saudi Arabia, and obviously this time it's over in Australia instead. So different location, different stars appearing in the likes of Bronson Reed. I feel like especially for him, this is going to be pretty huge. Um, just noticed as well, quite interestingly, that Drew McIntyre's on the poster for this and Jay Cargill is. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, that's just a weird thing I just noticed. But yeah, in terms of a match I'm probably the most looking forward to here, I would say it's probably either AJ Styles and John Cena or the women's tag team match, just purely for the fact that I think just the level of the build going into the women's tag has been brilliant, and I really want to see what the payout's going to be. What we're going to go with from here on, like what could happen next. So I feel like I'm invested in that, and that's where like my main interest is really with this one. When it comes to the AJ Cena, obviously you can look at that match, you can just expect it to be pretty good, based on the ones they've had in the past. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be another edition of a good contest between the two men. So I'm remaining hopeful for that. So my main optimism is there. In terms of how much I'm looking forward to the event, yeah, not bad. I am interested. Like I'm looking forward to it in parts. The whole champion versus champion thing has never been something too interesting for me because at the end of the day, there's not really much to come off at afterwards. But with the hints, that's been dealt by, from Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman, all that kind of stuff, I feel like there is a bit of a fascination in that one. Unfortunately for the women's one, it's not really standing out to me too much, but the match does look good on paper, and I think all of these matches do look fun. Do look decent on paper, especially Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. That one should be crazy. It should be fun, should be chaotic, and who doesn't love a good street fight? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely positives to take from this one, and hopefully it will work out and be as good as it does kind of look on paper. So I am optimistic, and I'm hoping for a good show. What about you, Nick? Where's your current vibe at? Are you feeling it, or are you maybe a little bit skeptical in parts as well?
Yeah, I've always liked the champion versus champion, so kind of on the opposite side of you on that one. But I just think it brings these intriguing matchups and storylines. In the grand scheme of things, usually doesn't end up meaning too much, but the intrigue is certainly there for me. In terms of matches I'm most looking forward to, yes, AJ and Cena as well as the tag team, especially if they go in the direction that I kind of want them to go, and that is Asuka and Kairi getting the win. If Io and Rhea get the win, that doesn't really become much of a match noteworthy unless something kind of substantial happens on the Kabuki Warriors side. I also think the Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins match could be a ton of fun. You have two of the best talents in the business, in my opinion, two of my favorites at least. So I think they could have a very good match as well. Obviously, being the main event, hopefully not just a clear cut match with not much going on. Hopefully, there's some drama with that one. So being in the main event spot, that's kind of what I'm hopeful for. But yeah, you mentioned Jade and Drew being on there. WWE throwing us for a swerve, perhaps, or were they supposed to be on the card and just didn't quite get to it? Interesting notes there. Yeah, I am looking forward to the match or the card overall. I think there's tons of, like I said, tons of opportunity to build stories here, and yeah, not a single match on paper looks bad to me. So hopefully, I might regret this, but I do have some lofty expectations for this one. So, with that, Crown Jewel Perth this Saturday, October 11th, in Perth, Australia. Those are our predictions. We'll, of course, be back with our reactions. Probably on Sunday. So, looking forward to this PLE, and we hope you are all as well. If you disagree with anything or agree, want to throw your predictions down in the comments, please do so. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as that helps us out tremendously. But with that, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.